So, I don't know how many of you have been coming to these events that Mark has been doing for years now. But those of you that are coming from outside of LA, this place that you're in is the newest and most amazing sports arena, a vision of Steve Ballmer and a couple of $1 billion, and it's really quite extraordinary. And there's never been any, it's new. Nobody's ever had the ambition or the chutzpah to do a conference in an arena like this. And the only thing I was trying to imagine is that for the 30th anniversary next year, I'm thinking we're probably going to go to SoFi next door and put on a show. But I do want to just once again thank Mark and the entire Upfront for their incredible hospitality for all of us. So thank you, thank you. We're going to dive in here, but I thought I would just do a couple of fast facts and figures to get us started here. And I think everybody knows, certainly of this group, 99% of startups fail. But today we get to hear from the 1% of the 1%, which is, it's not just that Roblox has succeeded over these years. Today it has actually got a market cap of $43 billion. So Dave co-founded and launched it in 2006. Today it's the #1 platform for user-generated gaming content with 85 plus million daily active users. Roblox ecosystem includes more than 5 million developers and creators who earned $1 billion in 2024, with the top creators earning $50 million apiece. In 2017, Roblox was worth $45 million. 7 years later, I said $45 million in revenue. 7 years later, the revenue is $3.6 billion, an increase of 7,900% in 7 years. Fortune magazine recently ranked the 50 companies most likely to adapt, thrive, and grow in the coming years, and Roblox ranked #2 ahead of NVIDIA, Reddit, Roku, and OpenAI. So this guy knows what he's doing, to say the very least. So let's go back to the beginning, and my first question, Dave, is if you go back 18 years ago, where you are today, is that something you ever imagined, dreamed, or knew?
So going back 18 years, it's interesting. We had come off an educational software company, and we saw a lot of young people trying to build and construct. And this idea that a new category would emerge, we were thinking of it as the immersive in the cloud 3D creation interactive category. Is really like a category out of sci-fi. It's a category of the holodeck and all of that. We have a early business plan slide that actually shows this new category and shows a bit of a convergence of both communication technology, going all the way back from Pony Express to mail to telephone, intersecting with storytelling technology, movies, audio. And what's really interesting about 3D immersive environments is both of those things happen in the same place. So that slide still exists, and then fast forward over 18 years, earlier aspirations, you might remember Club Penguin, and then along the line we had Minecraft, and then we had 3D cloud gaming. And fast forward to where we are right now, where we said, we believe with the technical innovations that are going on in AI and in cloud and all of that, we could see 10% of all the world's gaming running on Roblox. So that's a much bigger aspiration, but that same slide is actually exactly correct. Sorry. And that same slide is still valid. One company, one platform, it's held true.
So the big idea, what's the moment? Where did that come from? What was the catalyst that you went, aha?
There was a moment, this might sound really weird, that I was driving through northern Canada to see my grandparents. I was running this educational software company. I'd been driving for a couple days in the middle of that. And it's where your mind starts drifting into what could computers someday do? And it was a little bit of a parallel view that in addition to being all these tools and all of that stuff, they would be 3D environments. So for me, I had a little bit of that moment that this is just going to happen, and maybe we could play a role in that.
But were you a gamer? Were you a storyteller? Were you what's the
This is a little unorthodox because, in a sense, right now, 2.4% of all the gaming in the world runs on Roblox. We were much more sci-fi tool platform creators than gamer. And so in a sense, our initial vision when we were thinking about this convergence of storytelling and communication, we were thinking of it already in a much bigger utilitarian way. This is going to be a 3D operating system. People are going to go shopping. People are going to consume entertainment, learn physics problems, do gaming on top of it. So we actually came from this weirdly non-gaming angle.
And kids around you, family, how much did that influence you? How much were you encouraged, discouraged? How much it was bad, you don't know what you're talking about?
I felt I grew up in a pretty idyllic environment in Minnesota. I had an Apple II. Apple II had a assembly language, disassembly language. You could wire up a potentiometer and make some game controllers. So for some reason early on, I was making stuff like that on my Apple II.
Right. But how about once you started the company, how influenced were you by kids, your own and others around?
Very, very heavily, I would say, because all of my 4 kids were early Roblox players.
Well, that's why I ask. I'm trying to get it out of you.
Yeah, they were. What was good about my 4 kids is they had the freedom to be ridiculously cynical, and so would only play Roblox. You know, it's almost like they didn't want to because their dad was working on this.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at here, which is that for other than your own kids, you actually have to be like a rock star cool guy. You've built this amazing, amazing thing that they're spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of hours on. For your own kids, are they like, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a dork?
I actually feel my kids were pretty sheltered, and up through maybe our IPO, they just knew their dad worked on Roblox, and a few people knew about it. So I feel they, in a good way, lived a pretty sheltered environment, and now it's a whole new deal, right? In an airport, or people recognize me and all of that. So, but they're still pretty cynical. Like I'm just their dad, basically.
Nice. Was there a moment on the journey of these 18 years when it maybe all was lost? Was there a pivot place, or has it just been a up and to the right?
Yeah, I would say for everyone in this room, there were many of those moments where I know there were moments where we would just say, this is the absolute hardest thing we've ever done. This is just unbelievably difficult. There were moments in fundraising. There's an interesting pattern in fundraising, which at times was unbelievably difficult.
So talk a little bit about that, because there's a lot of investors here in the audience. So tell some of those early stories of trying to get the capital.
Well, I would say we, both trying to get capital and having existential economic moments where maybe players were growing and economics weren't growing. On the capital side, we saw this interesting phenomena, I'll just go general, in that within a VC firm, we might see 1 or 2 people who just got it and just like, oh my gosh, I'm willing to roll the dice on this. This is the future of sci-fi, and this could be huge. But I do think what we were trying to do was somewhat audacious, and when brought in front of a group of 8 or 10 partners, didn't resonate as much. You know, we heard someone talk earlier today, there was no pattern there. I think Brad was saying. Yeah. So there was no pattern about building a 3D in the cloud, immersive 3D gaming platform.
So was there a seed round for you? Let's just go through it for a second because it's, I think, pretty interesting. Was there a seed round? And
There-
how
there
many
was
investors?
ultimately-
How big was that?
There's ultimately a seed round with Altos Ventures where, from a serendipitous point, Anthony Lee was out scouting for what's the next Club Penguin. And so with that preemptive look of the next Club Penguin, they ran into us. We were arguably going for something ridiculously more crazy, right? 3D in the cloud, all of that. But that lined up. So that was really cool. And then there was a second investor whose son actually sourced Roblox, and I'm looking at him right over there, Chris Fralick from First Round, who also ushered us through. And so those first two, Anthony and Chris, took the big risks.
How big was the seed round?
We are talking unbelievably interesting returns on investment. We are talking $1 million things in the sub $20 million valuation.
Right. Okay.
And so
then,
these are getting into the 1,000 to 1 returns.
right. And the next round after that?
We then somewhat stalled out. Then we entered a second period of VC difficulty, even though we were showing a lot of incredible, next round things. We actually had to be very careful financially. And finally, after that, Meritech and Index, both of who I knew, Craig Sherman and Neil Reimer, finally just said, we got to do that. And they had that same phenomena of bringing their partners along, and we're glad they did.
And how big was the Series A round?
Once we got to that, we were more into the $500 million valuation.
But what did you raise in this?
Not a lot of money. I forget exactly what we raised. I will say when we went public, we literally had cash flowed so much that I think it's like literally we had spent 5 to 10 million of VC money.
Wow.
And we have 4 billion in the bank right now, and we have primarily earned that.
Anybody having FOMO here? We all are in search of that. That's an amazing, amazing story. So to sort of pivot off to a different path here. So it seems like we're about to come to one of those defining moments in the hardware cycle where the hardware platforms themselves are about to sort of innovate to something new coming. I'm sure you have some insight into that and don't know whether it's a year, 2, 3, 4 away. But what are you seeing? What are you excited about? How are these going to be value add for you and your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll share 2 separate things that I'm excited about. One thing I'm excited about is there are parts of the world for $100, everyone's buying a new smartphone. Those smartphones have the spec of a 2015 iPhone 6S, 2 gigabyte RAM. So here we are 9 years later, and the world is still got the same old phones. If anything, they're more difficult. So one thing we are very excited about, which is very, very difficult, is making Roblox run on these ridiculously bad phones. Ridiculously bad. Like none of our that would all have been in the garbage 8 years ago. The other thing that I do think is the world is slowly circling around AR type hardware. I think Google Glass had it right very early. Meta's poking around. Apple and Google are poking around. I do think that's an interesting area to watch. And I think there's just a lot of utility that even a very simple product is going to have, especially powered by AI, that we would wear in our daily lives. So that's the next thing. I think we're going to see mobile devices get powerful enough that they can generate what feels like real-time video spontaneously on the device. That will also be a big breakthrough for hardware.
So, but when the hardware changes, does that create whenever the next version of Xbox or PlayStation, when these things come along, do they help you? Does it have any impact?
We think they help us because we can really arbitrage. And we very early on, one of the, I would say, big breakthroughs we came to when we did mobile and then we did console is 3D immersive stuff, multiplayer, audio, video, really should run anywhere. And when people build creations on Roblox, we want them to run on any device, different controller, different camera, any country, automatic AI translation, any region of the world, different dynamic safety and civility policy. But really, that product spec, 12-year-old builds it, it runs anywhere, and dynamically adapts to the power of that device. So AR headsets, VR headsets, we love it, right? We think it could support Roblox side by side.
And the Meta glasses, what's your take on them?
I think they're super high quality. So it's an amazing gutsy play, I think, in the future of what can we wear with microphone, speaker, camera, and display for a long amount of time.
How many people here have tried them? Anybody tried them? I have. I'm blown away by it. It's really...
So here's, I think, the rub. And I think the rub is in 5 or 10 years, those will be standalone devices. I think we are going to see a period where those devices tether to power and compute in some way. And when you tether to power and compute, that power compute pod is kind of like a phone. And so the real product may be something here, something here, something here, something here. And so that creates a really interesting, Google, Apple, Meta collision at some point, because they have phones, but they don't have the glasses.
All right. So let's talk about AI. So there's, no business going to be impacted more than yours, probably by it. So whether it is the developer or the end user or the creators, everybody is going to be impacted in some fashion, shape, or form. How are you thinking about it?
So I'm really excited I'm an optimist on this, obviously not a pessimist. So I think just like the industrial revolution, this is going to be great for us. I think there's a few things converging on Roblox. Number one is from the start, we learned, because of our ambition to build this platform, it's got to be our own game engine. It's got to be our own cloud. It's got to be our own networking. It's got to be, our own stuff back there. And so as AI comes upon us, we are running on a cloud with 40 data centers and, hundreds of thousands of computers. AI is the same thing, and we've approached it that way. We started on this 4 years ago for safety and civility, getting better and better and better. But where is this going to go? I think it's ultimately going to go to, for avatars and NPCs, it's just going to be very common for us to be interacting with humans or avatars. That's been in the sci-fi for so long. There's going to be like some Asimov iRobot rules of like, that's an NPC kind of thing. I think it's going to, if we think about people playing games, it may be more optimal for people to interact either with their close friends or people who should be their friends or great AIs rather than, weird noobs that aren't good kind of thing. So you could imagine that third level of interaction being better. And then if you go into an immersive environment, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Well,
that's the thing is visually, don't you think this just becomes completely transformative to what you see on the platform
Absolutely.
as a...
Our bet is that both for NPC simulation, synthetic environment simulation, it's Westworld, it's make what you want, it's... and then ultimately real-time synthetic environment simulation, literally for you, things are being created around you based on what you like, which will happen. It's absolutely transformative. So we're taking the risk that we're going to give everyone unlimited AI, unlimited 3D generation, unlimited text generation, and somewhat akin to the early days of Roblox. We're going to see what happens with that.
So how do you go about doing that? How hard is that for you to do? How big a capital investment do you need to make?
We have refined our skill of running many trust and safety models, moderation, customer service on our own infrastructure, on these hundreds of thousands of CPUs and GPUs. And so we are going to be launching in Q1. Any Roblox developer can have text generation as a service. So if you build a historical figure and say, hey, I want my avatar to act like whoever you like, if that's been trained in our big model, that'll start working. If you're in a experience where people want to build stuff in addition to using their hands and tools and all of that, they'll be able to use prompts and say, hey, I'd like a 4x4 dune buggy colored red, and we'll start to see the early signs of that as well.
How big a capital investment do you need to make in order to provide this?
The good news is we've been doing this capital investment over the last 4 to 5 years. So watching our data centers and our compute purchases, we've been able to build that up over time. The other thing is, in the AI world now with DeepSeek and a bunch of other stuff, efficiency is also starting to be a buzzword. DeepSeek runs ridiculously efficiently. We have really been focusing on this for voice safety as well. So we're very good at running things efficiently too.
So let's why don't you, on the path of safety, I know that for you, we've talked about this many times over many years here, how you personally have established for yourself your standards and practices.
Yeah.
And decided that those values are going to be fundamental to Roblox and to the experience on Roblox. There's no one else in the world that has taken that path and certainly delivered on it, even if their intent was there. So talk a little bit about the challenges of that, how difficult that is, how you maintain it, how important it is to you.
I think it's been super hard, but super good for us to start young. And so then have aspirations of both 6-year-olds, 14-year-olds, and 25-year-olds. They each have a different configuration of what's needed for safety and communication. And there's an enormous balancing act, even in the zone of, I'd say, 14 through 17-year-olds, where typically right now it's a little bit, look, if people are over 13, they just do whatever they want. We actually feel there's an opportunity in that age range to balance. Some people become best friends. They meet digitally, they're having a rough time, they're alone, they meet their best friend on Roblox, and then they meet in the physical world. Balancing that with all the risks of bad actors and zero tolerance from that. So being the best of the world of that 13 through 17 zone, who can really connect off platform, is really big for us.
Pretty great. Somebody's clapping up there. They should. So you said failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone towards it. Explain that.
Yeah, I guess if we're failing all the time, I was just in it's interesting, we run some experimental projects on Roblox probing around at what people might do in the future. And I was just at a company meeting on Friday, 2,000 people, and someone said, wow, we failed at this. And no, everyone was like getting on Slack. No, we didn't fail. Like we learned a lot, and it's moving forward. The very first version of Roblox was a complete failure. It missed key strategic things we thought we knew. We tried to rush it, blew up. We just went back to the drawing board for probably a year, actually.
Thanks. You spoke a little bit to this when we were off talking about hardware in it, but I wanted to read this quote because I thought it was actually pretty interesting. Our vision goes to the future of communication. It goes to the evolution of the mail system, to the telegraph system, to the phone system, to the video system. We believe the generation beyond this will be the immersive 3D communication system. And so what does that mean for all of our lives? I mean, obviously for Roblox, but paint the picture for us.
Yeah, we feel that this is just going to happen. And when 3D local simulation keeps getting better and better. There'll be just so much more flexibility and advantages to either a company meeting, our conversation, the ability to connect more deeply, that what we see in gaming is going to start trickling in. You know, simulation of the company office, going to a concert, and it'll be a utility. It'll be just like we kind of bored with the phone right now, and we're kind of bored with video. It'll get boring, but we will expect that you and I could get up and trade seats. We'll expect that we could walk up to someone else and talk to them. And I think it's just inexorable. It's a matter of when computers can support it. There will still be videos, still be phone, but this will just be the next generation of that.
I'm going to jump to the speed round. Mac or PC?
I would say Mac, because no fan when on your lap in bed.
Movie theater or streaming?
Movie theater, right?
Say it. Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick?
I got to say the volleyball scene in Top Gun, man.
Okay. Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Just introduced to Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love it.
Football or soccer?
The ridiculousness of football is appealing to me.
Dogs or cats?
I was thinking about this, like anxious attachment versus avoidant attachment, or like both, right?
Okay, Warren Buffett or Jim Cramer?
They're not in this, you can't compare them.
You
right?
can.
No, like one is entertainment passion, one is incredible investment. They overlap in a weird way.
Okay, cheap shot. Daytona 500 or Miami F1?
So I've been to F1. Once again, I feel there's something ridiculous about sticking with V8 engines.
Okay.
The ridiculousness of Daytona is appealing to me.
Logan Roy or Rupert Murdoch?
Logan. Man, Logan. That guy's a madman. I love Logan.
Star Wars or 2001 Space Odyssey?
I'm a huge 2001 fan, and the ability of that, I watch that movie with my kids. I say, look, you're going to think this is really slow and boring, but it's amazing. The quality just blows my mind.
All right, so 5 years from now, we'll come back, and that $43 billion with this man will likely be $430 billion. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Jeffrey.